Okay.
My struggle dragging. But in the meantime, today, welcome everybody to our History in a Cup. Thank you to our volunteers, and I just like to point them out, Carol and Dawn and Phyllis, and our president, Tom Pellet, is here, and Peter Elder is taping today, so you'll see it, you can see it on YouTube eventually. Eventually. So today we have Marlene and Gary Lazzaro, and I'm Jan Neokas, by the way. I never introduced myself. And Marlene, and one of the things that we do with History and Cup is oral history, because this is National Preservation Month. And so in Webster we thought, well, fine, let's get stories of people who grew up in Webster. And that's what we aim to do. So we've been doing this now. I had the flag on the wrong side.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, so we tried to, for 15 years. So when we started, 15 years ago, we had people who grew up on the farm. And the stories we got were interesting. But they still are today too, because it's nostalgia. And that's what we want to hear about. We want to hear about you growing up in Webster and what was good about it, what you think you could have been better maybe, but in your memories, what you remembered about it. And where you went to school, where you grew up, how many children in your family, did you have to work, you know, all of that stuff. So we find that interesting, and you get to ask questions, too, of them, and find out, pick their brains. So Gary and Marlene are interesting because they not only grew up here, they got married, and then they had a business. So they've had a long 57 years together. So we'll hear their stories. So go ahead, guys.
Okay. Well, Gary lets me start because he knows I don't like to talk in front of people. But sometimes once I get started, then I keep finding things to say. Actually, I was born in Rochester on April 18th, 1948. And I have one brother, Larry, who's 2.5 years younger than me, and he came to see what we have to say in case I'm lying. When I was born, we lived on Main Street on the second story of my grandparents' house, and this was Main Street in Rochester near Wisconsin Street. And then when I turned 5, my parents bought a house on Pineview Drive off of Bay Road in Webster. So I started kindergarten in Webster. And they bought the house, I have notes so I don't forget, but they paid $11,900 for that house, which to me would be fantastic today.
Can I add that something there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Her grandfather, who was a mason, and a very good one, by the way, from Holland, and the house was listed at $9,900, and he said, that's outrageous. He says, they'll come down in price. So they waited 2 months, and then they paid $11,900.
Yeah. I started kindergarten, and I started at the 2-room schoolhouse on Bay Road by Bacchus Road, and that's where my schooling began. We walked to school and back home from school, and like Gary's mother always used to say, uphill both ways. So we did that, and I do have some pictures that I will show because this is my kindergarten class pictures. I'll pass it around. But anyways, when I run into schoolmates, they always point out to me that I'm this one here with the coat button crooked, so you can find me easily.
What school?
This was the old Bay Road School.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and on the back is a pencil drawing that somebody did. So.
Oh, nice. Here, I'll pass it around.
Okay.
Thank you. Class for a small school.
Yeah, and there were 2 classes in there, so that was, Mrs. Scudder was my teacher. Some of these pictures are from my mother. She did a real good job of putting photo albums and stuff together with these and names on the back and all that. So, anyways, we lived in a real safe neighborhood. My mom and dad both worked. When we'd come home from school, you'd just go home, the door was unlocked, you didn't have to worry about anything. Kids played, we did our homework before we went out to play, usually, right?
Half of us did.
Not the enough. So then we were outside all the time. Little growing up, the girls all wore dresses. I have pictures of us in sandboxes with the fancy little dresses on and socks. We never wore shoes, we just wore socks around, usually white ones that didn't stay white. So we did that. We had a lot of kids on the street. I think there were like 8 girls and 6 boys, and we all got along together. We just played baseball in the street, the typical, the kick the can, and well, anything we could think of we did. It's like when you read those posts on Facebook and it says you're old if you remember. Well, like I remember most of them, like all but one maybe. And I said, but that was so good. It was such a nice growing up because we didn't have the pressures that the kids have today. I feel bad for them, I really do. But we enjoyed what we did. We were always getting together. My girlfriends and I, my parents had the back of their house here and then a porch with jalousie windows. So we would make tents by stapling blankets to the house and then putting the blankets and hooking them into the jalousie windows and bring out a sleeping bag. And the biggest bad thing we ever did was our dads all smoked. So we all snuck a cigarette of our dad's and a can of Genesee beer. And like we told our grandkids this, they went, "Oh my gosh, you were a rebellious grandma." But that was the bad. There was nothing like anybody's dealing with today and parents dealing with kids now today. Let's see, picture. This picture is my mother and I, and we had mother-daughter dresses. I don't think they do those anymore.
Oh,
and then
cute.
the other picture was when I was 7 and I was in the hospital to get my tonsils out.
Oh.
And you can see what the hospital bed looked like at that time. The room, a lot different. That's why I picked that picture because it's a lot different than what we had. So at the time, I went to most of the schools that were available, or were in Webster. I went to the Old Bay Road School. Then I went to first, second, and third grade. I went to the West Webster School, which I think is now the Armory. Yes, yeah. So that was first, second, and third. Fourth, fifth, and sixth, I went to the Bay Road School, which I don't remember even what it is now. Seventh and eighth, I went to the 4-room schoolhouse that was, you probably remember, back West Webster School, and it was back in the corner there. And there were 4, remember that? Somebody's got it. And that's where I went for 7th and 8th grade. And then R.L. Thomas had just opened 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th. So I was the first class that went in for 9th grade and was there for all 4 years. So I graduated in '66 from there. But we did, so many different things. There was one, about a half a mile away, there was a big sledding hill, so we'd take our sleds there, and there was a creek down behind somebody's house, and we used to go and catch pollywogs and frogs and sometimes turtles, but not very often. And we'd go at night, we'd ride our bikes, and we never, as long as we were home, as it got dusk, or my dad whistled, he had a terrific whistle, so he would whistle, and that's when we had to come into the house. And so that's what we did. They didn't know where we were, obviously no cell phones, anything like that, so, but we never went alone. We always went with somebody. And then we used to, in the winter, we would walk from Bay Road down to the bay to go ice skating. And in the summer, we would go down to Lake Road and take the railroad tracks down to the outlet to go swimming. So we had to watch out for the undertow, and we had to watch out if a train was coming. We had to make sure we weren't going on that little bridge that passed over the little road there, so we were really careful about that. And then we had, one of our parents would take us sometimes up to a bus loop at by Seabreeze, and we'd take the bus every Saturday and go downtown to Arceo Palace and watch watch movies, and we'd go to Woolworths for their, whatever we could find for something to eat for lunch, and then come back, and another parent would pick us up and bring us back home again.
Do you remember a movie that you?
Oh, I don't remember the movies. It didn't matter. Well, I saw Bye Bye Birdie. Remember that one? I think I saw with Anne Margaret. I think I saw that 3 times. And I don't know. It was just every Saturday we went, and it was just winter not so much, but in the the nicer.
How'd you know the ice was safe to go skating in?
We looked good.
No, I'm from the Adirondacks.
Oh, yeah.
We had to make sure the ice was.
I think it was a lot colder then or something, so it must have been thick enough. But yeah, they did. There were
The
sometimes.
parents must have known.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes there would be like a snowmobile up there or something. So or some kind of
Yeah.
deal like that. We also used to go up to the Webster Fire Hall, the old one on Gravel Road, and every year they had a ice skating rink in there, and we'd go down. They had it open underneath where you could go in and change your from your sneaks and whatever. So we would do that. We just did kid stuff. We just had such a good time, and I think the sad thing is when we graduated and went on, we didn't have that contact as much as we did then, of course, because you saw these people every day. And I ran into one of the girls that we were best friends through right until we graduated, and then she moved away and we got married, and it was it was like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden all these things just kept popping out and talking about and whatever. So then she lives down in, where is it? South of here.
I thought she was Canisius area.
Yeah, anyway, so another month or so, we're gonna get together and just spend the day. And I told Gary he couldn't come.
Reminiscing.
Yes, reminiscing. I told Gary he couldn't come, so.
Yeah, but you want me to drive you there?
No, I can drive, I can drive
You're supposed
there.
to drive and then circle into town and
Yeah.
find a bar or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But a couple things we did that my mother didn't find out till way after the fact, you'll remember. We used to take one of the lounge cushions from the lounge in the back, and it had the seat and it had a back on it. Well, we would sit on it, hold the back in front of us, and then slide down the attic stairs on it. And the door going outside was right at the end of it, so somebody would hold it open just in case we kept going. So Don found that out probably, 10 years ago maybe? It was a while.
Always too late.
Always do that. So we would do that, because she always wondered how so much dust got on the steps. So we had no idea how much it got on at that time. So I think then Gary and I met in high school, and I'll let him tell you about his growing up.
So where'd you go to high school?
Darrell Thomas.
Harold Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you graduated out of there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions about how bad we were?
What about, did you go to the prom?
Yes. Yeah, I have a
Do
picture
you
of that.
remember your dress?
I do. I can show you my dress.
Did you go here?
Yes, good. Okay, well, he's gonna tell you about his first car, which is on here. It's a 1966 GTO with a white convertible top. So that's the car, and below it is Gary and I at the prom.
Oh, nice. Look at that hair.
Yeah.
Where did you go grocery shopping back then?
Usually Hagedorn's. And
Was there any other store?
I'm trying to
I
think
can
of it.
answer that.
Go ahead.
Actually, where the Wegmans is right now, that used to be like a little mini strip. Well, there was a number of businesses in there. So Wegmans
The
was.
Holt
that-
Road
Oh,
Wegmans?
but prior to that, we'd go to Seabreeze, where
Yes.
there was a Star Market,
Yeah,
Right.
and that was typical Friday night.
Friday night,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I find that interesting. We've talked to different people, and that was one of the questions I was gonna ask you guys, because, I grew up here in the village, so we just walked up and shopped on Main Street. But, when we did a couple of years ago or so, talking about, West Webster, a lot of the folks that were here talked about the fact of going either to Seabreeze or, up in Laurelton someplace and shopping in there,
Yeah.
So I'm glad that came up, because I was kind of curious about what you guys did.
Yeah.
Because you were kind of middle of the road in between West Webster and
Right,
the village, so,
right.
yeah.
Did you ever, Marlene, did you go in the village at all?
Not much.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
we'd come up for, once it started with the fireman's parade. but-
Yeah, as far as you went.
Yeah, not a lot. It was, way over on the other, way on the
I
other
know.
side, so, yeah.
I found that a lot. People who lived way over on DeWitt or Bay Road or along in West Webster, they
Yeah.
didn't really come to the village that much.
No.
Well, because they had that there was no little turnaround bridge there. It was, the bay outlet was always open, right? You
Oh,
always
well,
had a
we were on
bridge
this
there.
side of the. the side
Right,
of
but
it.
there was always a bridge there, wasn't there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could get back and forth.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We,
Actually, the Ridge Theater,
oh gosh, don't talk.
I mean, that was long gone,
Yeah.
but there was a theater here in the village,
Yeah.
and depending on what was going on, we'd come up and catch a flick.
Mm-hmm. We have to go there and then.
You'd go to the movie or what?
Yeah, movie.
Is that where that,
Ridge Theater.
That's where the
That's
Stop
not
and
where
Rob is on
this
the
was,
corner
right?
of
oh, okay.
Corning and Main Street.
You didn't have silent movies.
No.
How old do you think
That's
they
what I
are,
was
Jan?
asking.
No, just come in, Jan.
Thank you, Jan.
Believe it or not, they had color movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the Ridge Theater and then we went to the Candy Kitchen after that.
Oh, Candy Kitchen, yeah, that's good.
But yeah, all these things, if somebody says something, it just keeps coming around. Anything else there?
Well, there was, we didn't come up to the village, but there was a little supermarket on the northwest corner. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was a variety store also. But you could always get, milk and bread and,
Yeah.
the staples that
That
you
the
would
one that
need.
was down at Forest Lawn?
Right,
No.
there was one
No,
there.
That was the
Yeah.
Penny Saver.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, we used to walk down there
You're
too.
right, down by the lake.
Yeah, there again, you could get just enough to get by.
Yeah.
Penny candy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We'd take a nickel or a dime down and buy a bag full of candy. We'd go down on our bicycles. There was a trail that went from Vosburg Road down to Lake
I've
Road.
heard about that.
And that was downhill one way and uphill the other way. But it was just always fun, always
Yeah.
with the neighbor kids, and
Yeah.
every neighborhood, had their little clique, and there were never any problems,
Yeah.
between any of the factions or whatever was there.
Yeah.
Everybody got along.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Marlene, did you work at all during,
I worked, originally when I was like 16, I worked at Neisner's, that was up in where's Wegmans now was Neisner's and a bunch of little
Oh, yeah,
things
that's
and
right,
restaurant,
base-
whatever
yeah.
there, so I
That
worked
was
there.
in Eastway, wasn't it? Eastway.
Yeah, yeah, so I worked there for a couple of years. I did everything, kind of. I did cashier, I stacked things, I cleaned up the things that got
Yeah.
put where they weren't supposed to be. I used to have to cut the Venetian, not blinds, but where you had to cut the wood to get the right length for everything. I used to have to make keys, so I did a lot of stuff there. And then after that, I worked for RF Communications. And I worked there because my dad was there too for a couple of years. That was before it changed into something else.
Harris
Harris.
Corporation.
Yeah. So I did that. But then after that, I was home with kids, and then he had this brilliant idea that he wanted to have a showroom. So the rest of that's history too.
How many children do you got?
We have 3. Yeah, a daughter and 2 sons. And we have 8 grandkids.
nice.
Two girls that pick on Gary all the time, and 6 boys.
Wow.
So, yeah, the oldest one is 31, he just got married in April. And the youngest is his second year at UMass Boston. So in between is all the rest of them. We're all doing well.
And a grandson up in Connecticut,
Yeah.
and he works for Pratt & Whitney in aerospace. And he graduated with honors from Purdue. And he actually, Boeing was courting him every semester he was at Purdue. And now he's kind of happy that, in fact, about I think it was maybe a month and a half, 2 months before he was gonna graduate from Purdue, Boeing contacted him and said, we'd like you to be a part of this test run of 41 students in aerospace. And we're going to choose 6 to hire. So he gets, and this is a young man that was never used to not making the team.
He studied, he
Ever.
was so conscientious, he
He
still
is
is.
something. And so anyways, he gets a phone call from somebody at Boeing and said, thank you for participating. I just want you to let you know that you were number 7. So that night, we're having dinner with his parents, our son and daughter-in-law, and I said, wow, how did he handle that? And he says, he's still stymied. So after dinner, we're FaceTiming with him. And I said, Connor, I go, how'd you handle that, buddy? He goes, Bubba, I didn't know what to say. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, the way I'm looking at this thing, it's their loss. He goes, I like that idea. Well, then he interviewed with quite a few businesses and building airplanes and engines and whatever. Pratt & Whitney took a real shining to him. And so they offered him 3 consecutive 8-month internships. And so he's in Connecticut for the first 8 months and in East Hartford. And then he moves into Middletown, Connecticut. And then the third stop is West Palm Beach, which is where they actually build the engines for military aircraft and commercial airline, big commercial airline. And so he was only at 6 months in Connecticut, and West Palm Beach checked out his record up here, and they said, we need him down here. So he went down there for a month and a half, 2 months, so he had to get another apartment down there. And now, then he came back, he says, well, what I'd like to do, I still want to go finish my term out at each one. And they kept saying, we want you to go around each of these locations, and they have several. They're part of a huge conglomerate all over the U.S. and out of the U.S. also. And so he says, I really want to find out what I like. And they said, that's what we want you to do, because one way or the other, we want you on the team, and we want to make sure that you're happy with what you're doing. So he went to West Palm Beach, and then he came back. He was only in Connecticut for 2 weeks, and then they contacted him and said, we're building a special team because we're gonna revamp the engines here, and they rattled off what they were gonna do. And Connor, being Connor, he's the most humble young man you'll ever meet, other than his dad. And anyways, he says, I'm gonna be very honest with you. He goes, I didn't understand half of what you told me. And so, and they said, we're not worried about it. We know you'll figure it out. We want you on this team. So that's yet to come. So he's still up here, but eventually he probably will end up there working on engines and stuff.
Thank you, proud grandpa.
Yeah, you just ran out of time, you can't talk about yourself.
No, we can't. No, it's all- Now you can talk about yourself.
Okay,
Okay, we want to know, where'd you grow up?
Webster. I was born in Webster.
Yeah, but where?
Plum Road.
Oh, Plum Road, I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Yep. That was all my grandpa Mario Lazzaro's
Oh,
property.
yeah, I remember the Lazzaro, yeah.
Sure.
I went and interviewed, was that your father?
Pardon?
No. Tom, I interviewed a Lazzaro.
Oh, maybe Joe. Joe, it was Lazzaro. He took, that was my,
On the road, Whiting,
yeah.
yeah, is that him?
That's my Uncle
Okay.
Joe.
Okay.
Yep, and they were Lazzaros. They just took the O off when it wasn't good to be an Italian, which my father never forgave him for that. And one of my cousins, the oldest of his sons, whom I built 2 houses on Whiting Road. My dad did my uncles, and I did 2 of the boys, Dave Lazzaro and then Glenn Lazzaro. And Dave has said more than once, I want to put the O back on, I'm a Lazzaro. So, that being said, yeah, so I was born in Webster on May 6, 1948. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, and we were all 2 years apart. It was girl, boy, girl, boy. And one of the things that I recall, we were in an entirely different atmosphere than Marlene was. There weren't houses on Clem Road at the time. There was just spot here and
Farms.
there and some barns and stuff. And so my grandpa Stump, because Mom was a stump.
Oh, you were a stump?
I was a stump, and so maybe some of you might have known, if you've been around long enough, Tony Stump. And he was a town councilman for 14 years. And Uncle Tony, that was my mom's brother. And he lived up on 5 Mile Line. Well, Grandpa Tony came down with a team of horses, and he would till the field. And it was always when my mom would say, Grandpa's coming, man, I'd head right out there, because I got the biggest charge out of watching the horses and how they tilled the land, and because there was a lot of acreage around us. And I still remember Grandpa would always look over, and I knew he was going to do it, so I'd get over near, he'd pull up near the lawn, and he'd say, boy. I don't even know if he knew I had a name. Boy. And so he'd have 2 standard dry ales in the little stubby bottles, and so he'd say, put those in the shade. Well, I went in and talked to Mom, and she goes, bring them in and put them in the refrigerator. And then he'd have some cigars, always had a cigar. And so I would take those and put them in the house, and after a while, us kids got to understand that every time when you opened the cupboard door and you were looking for a glass, or you open the next one and you're looking for a dish, there was cigars stuffed in all the way around the kitchen, and that was, he never went without. And consequently got us all going on cigars. Later on in life, here we are going to weddings, and we would be at a reception. That's back when you could do that and think nothing of a cloud of blue smoke everywhere and gray smoke, and everybody would just say, okay, what have you got for cigars? And we'd open up our suit coat and, hey, I think I'll try one of those. What do you got? I think I'll try one of those. That went on for years, I'm serious. Until I finally became allergic to them and I had to quit doing that. So, but anyways, that was just fun, and you didn't even realize at the time what you were learning to see how you took raw ground and then you grew crops. And so, you know, and I had actually all said and done, I had 3 uncles that were farmers. So then, unfortunately, do you have pictures of me with my golden locks? My sister had very straight, dark hair. And I was born with very curly blonde hair. And as this goes around and you'll see, and so my mom would, in fact, she cut 4 inches of the locks and she put them in the hope chest.
Now they're in my hope chest.
And
I'm
now
still
they're in her
hoping.
hope chest. And people would say, oh, what a cute little girl. And so, which ticked my sister off, because she's got the straight hair. And I'm not liking it at all, at age 4 even. So, anyways, we lived, my grandpa Mario came over on the boat from Italy, and we're Sicilian. And he went to North Goodman Street, and then decided that he looked at land in Webster. He actually bought 47 acres in Webster. And
On Clem Road?
on Clem Road.
Okay.
So my Uncle Joe and Dad had he had 33 acres, and Uncle Joe had the balance. Well, then both of them came back from World War II, and Uncle Joe decided, he was always a machine mechanic, and he did all kinds of metal work and stuff, and he decided he was going to be a farmer. And so my dad said, well, if you're going to be a farmer, you're going to want the 47 acres or the 33 acres, and we're going to take the balance. And so that was a matter of a signature on a paper, and that's it. You now own it, and I own this. and there was no money exchange. So I've told my cousins for years, you owe me so big. Because there's tracts of houses on there now, and I says, you owe me, and they go, I know. But anyways,
Gary, yeah, so put us in, where was the farm?
that would be from.
Where the apple trees are, that guy that's selling it's selling it now along Whiting?
This was,
In Clem.
Clem started, our property started at 5 Mile Line and then went east. And it
Okay.
goes east past what was then, it was past Whiting Road,
And which side of the street are you on?
North side.
on the north.
Okay.
What Jan's asking is, the Lazzaro property on the northeast corner of Whiting and Clem.
Oh, where Ted is, with the greenhouses.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, where the
That
green
was
house
Joe's.
is now.
That's his.
That was
It's
it.
Joe's property, and now what,
Oh.
Yeah.
there's a builder on there, they bought that property.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, what's your cousin's name? It's gone right out of my head.
Ted,
Ted,
Yeah, Teddy.
Yeah.
Ted, yeah.
yeah, he's the youngest of
Yeah.
the three cousins.
He's still doing some stuff
He
there,
does
I
some,
think,
yeah. Yeah.
But that was that whole stretch, Jan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was originally, didn't it go right to Shoemaker Road?
Where?
Yes,
Went right from Clem Road back
Yeah.
to Shoemaker to Whiting.
when Visca
Okay.
built houses,
Wow,
that was our property.
okay.
And that was actually property when we sold that. I was pretty unhappy about that because I really wanted to be a builder. And but Dad had a heart attack at age 54 and never to be able to come back to work. So we had to sell the land to pay off the hospital. And it barely did it. All the money from the land went to pay the hospital. So that was, and that's the only reason I could really deal with that, you know. So, but yeah, that was, now, I never met Grandpa Mario, a very ambitious, hardworking man, because he died when my dad was 17 at the age of 64. And come to find out, he had severe heart trouble, and of course, they didn't know what to do with it at that time. And so he would hitch the horses up at 4 in the morning and go to the city to the market.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Rain, shine, snow, you name it. Yeah, he was a hard-working man.
That's what they would do.
Yes, yes, they did. He raised burdock, and that
They're
was
going up
supposedly a delicacy.
the hill there.
Oh, yeah.
They raised it, burdock.
Yep, it was a delicacy. And,
Well, it is a delicacy, but I didn't know they raised it.
yeah, yep, they did. So my mother was a retired nurse from the original Rochester General Hospital. In fact, she was a head nurse. And my dad was a foreman at the Ann Martin Lumber Company, which is right there
Right there.
Oh,
on
yeah.
that calendar from 1932.
Oh, yeah.
And he worked there for 20 years. In the last 8 years, he was the foreman of the whole operation, including houses that were built on off Bay Road, Bacchus and those, and all the fireplaces that had all the special fluted pilaster trims and ornate crowns and everything. Dad would go out to them, and I've forgotten the builder's name there. And by the way, they didn't have power saws when they were building those houses. They were doing it like this. And so Dad would go out and measure them, and then design them, and then many times he'd go install them on the side for him. So a lot of those houses, he did that. And then and he did that for 20 years total. And in 1954, he started his own building and remodeling business. So at that time, I like to build little forts and little houses. And so finally, and Dad started the business when I was 6. So finally, at age 7, I literally begged him to take me to work. And that's a true story, at 7 years old. And so, and I got
But the thing is, to have a father that would do that.
and Dad was a teacher. What he taught us was about the trades, about everything in life and trades. And he was exceptional at that, you know. I
Very
still-
patient.
Yes, I thank him today for that too. So anyhow, he finally agreed to take me to work. Now, we're building custom homes at the time, and one at a time, and hundreds of additions in the course of time. And I'm working next to 18, 20, 30-year-old guys, and I'm 7. And I'm not gonna let them push that 16-foot lumber up there for rafters. And here I am at 7 years old, and I got all I can do. That thing's just about ready to take me backward. And so, anyways, so I did definitely, I just learned a ton, plus it was hard work. And take your lunch just like all the rest of the people. And I can remember at one point I got to a point where I had to take 3 sandwiches a day. Because I was burning it as fast as I was eating it.
Did they have labor laws, child labor laws back then?
We did, we
It might be.
did. I was working at age 13, I was working in Penfield on a church with Dad, and we had to cut through a 20-inch stone wall,
Oh my
stone and mortar wall. And I'm in there chopping away, we had a small jackhammer and all that, and some inspector walked by,
Oh.
drove by, and that was the end of me working on that job. He said, don't you bring that kid on here again, but 13 years old,
There was a labor
and
law.
so Dad had to do it alone. And I wasn't very happy with that inspector either. So, but I can tell you, in fact, Chamber of Commerce recognizes when we've been in business 50 years, and they said, would you like to say a couple words? And I said, well, I can tell you one thing. I told a story about how I was 7 when I started in this business, and they're like, whoa. And I go, yeah, and I got to explain something to you. Today, I would not try as hard as I did then.
You'd play.
Even though I loved what I did then, and I still do. And that's what makes it very difficult for me to start thinking about slowing the business down. My wife would be just
When I roll again.
very happy to do that, and I agree with her. So, so anyways, I attended kindergarten at Spry, and then
So you were at, a lot of the Indian Village kids said they
Mhm.
started there too.
Yep. Then St. Rita's School, that's where I actually went for 1st grade through 8th grade. And and that was, you know, that none of us liked the fact that we had to wear bolo ties every day. And so people would ask you, SROS, what's it? SRS, what's it stand for? I go, State Reform School.
The one picture is the Gary in 3rd grade with the bolo tie, with the one
Yeah,
that's got
I
the
saw
car
that.
on, did you see it?
Yeah.
That was always a challenge there. And so while I'm at the school, I somehow managed to get detention. And so I tried to explain to my parents I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But so your detention detail was that you had to buff floors on Friday, after school on Friday. And all the chairs got put up.
Ouch.
And so Mr. Harder was the head maintenance man, and so he would bring me home after that, and so my parents would go. And, you know, being a parochial school, Mom and Dad were paying pretty serious money to
Yeah.
send us all there. And so, anyways, I saw they're short on help. Well, they didn't find out for years it was detention. So here I am running this buffer, and the crazy thing's only like 15, 16 inches in diameter, and you're doing all the rooms in that new wing, and you had to hustle. Well, then Mr. Harder comes in one day, and I see this thing, and here's a buffer. It's 24 inches in diameter, and I go, wow. He goes, did you notice I put it in the center of the floor? And I go, yeah. He goes, first time you start it up, you're gonna understand why I put it in the center of the floor. Well, sure enough, man, we were headed toward a wall. You had to learn how to do that. You could go right along those baseboards and do it. Actually, I became the head buffer, by the way. And then Mom and
He's
Dad.
very proud of that, and the grandkids realize that.
So the grandkids, if they have any problems at all, they go, I think I know where it came from. So, but anyway, St. Rita's was really an interesting school, and I'm going to tell you, discipline, holy cow, those nuns. And I used to be visiting in the principal's office quite a bit with Sister Mary Ellen. And so then I actually went to, I worked with my dad on Saturdays. And so we're going to be working at the convent for St. Rita's on a Saturday, certain Saturday. And he goes, we're driving toward the job, and he goes, oh, by the way, he said, what happens in the convent stays in the convent. I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, we're only working there for maybe an hour, and all of a sudden, one of the nuns is down there in the laundry room, and somebody had run out of soap. So she let everybody know she was not happy. And so she said a few things, and I remember looking over at my dad. He goes, what happens in the convent stays in the convent. And oh, by the way, I got to see all of them without their habits. And everything. That was cool. So anyways, I got to realize that the nuns, these are the ones that smack the ruler on your knuckles when you're misbehaving. I'm going, well, you aren't so perfect either here. But anyways, it was just all part of the experience. So then ninth grade went back to Spry, and then Earl Thomas was then ready, so then I went years 10, 11, and 12 at Thomas. And then I'll step back for a minute. As kids, we played baseball, guys and gals. Actually, we had some really good girls on our team, and we did play quite a bit often, quite often actually. And while in high school, I actually learned to like wrestling at Spry, and then didn't really start to compete until I got to Earl Thomas. And I wrestled 3 years for Thomas in the middleweights. I actually started out at 120 and finished at 138. And as a senior, I weighed 154, and I had to take that weight off every match to 138.
Oh, my goodness.
And that meant
That's ridiculous.
That meant no eating for 2-3 days, and that meant
Spit,
no water.
spit,
A
spit.
lot of spitting too. I
Yes.
did the same thing.
Did you?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
spitting.
Spitting.
You spit.
Oh,
That
God.
close.
Yeah.
My son
Sour
did it.
balls.
You just make 138.
Yeah. You'd get to the point where you had, if we were traveling someplace or if we were home, and you'd buy the sour balls so you
Yeah.
could really spit better.
Yeah.
And it would get to the
How much
point,
weight can
it'd
you
get to the
lose?
point where the ref, and Jim Gentile was a super ref, and as long as they could see daylight, when it was at one, and you stepped on the scales and it's 138, and if it was close enough that it just ticked a little bit, then you didn't have to take all your clothes off while both teams are standing here, and both coaches are standing here. Back then, that didn't mean anything. I gotta get weight in here, I'm wrestling. So
You know what he's
anyways,
talking about.
Yeah, for
So-
sure.
so then, we had a big meet at RIT one night. It was the Big Four. It was Webster, Eastridge, East Rochester, and Arundecoit. And there was talent scouts, all into the bleachers watching. And luckily, I won my matches that night. And coach came over and he goes, after the one I was exhausted, and he said, when you catch your breath and everything, he goes, there's a talent scout wants to talk to you. So you go into the locker room, and then by the end of the night, there was a second scout wanted to talk to me. And so bottom line was I had 2 free rides offered to me to architectural schools. And I never took them. I stayed in the business with Dad. Yeah, Dad didn't like the idea that I might be going off to college. And,
He wasn't into college either. He
No.
felt it really.
well, he learned it all the hard way.
Yeah.
And so I must say that that haunted me for years, and I wish I had at least at the time gotten some education in how to run the business. And finally, I said this enough apparently to one of my customers, and he said, you know something, every time you come here, he goes, you lament this same thing. He says, maybe you don't even realize it. And he goes, so, he said, we won't have anybody else do our work. So he goes, you did this the hard way. And therefore, he goes, stop beating yourself up. And I did. Right from that night forward, I never said it anymore. And so, but I do wish I had gotten some background in finance and stuff like that. But Dad taught us well as far as knowing how to do things. And there are people today that even say, wow, how do you know to do this? How do you know to do that? Your dad taught you all that. I go, no. What Dad did, he taught me how to problem solve. That's a whole different ballgame. And as the evolution of things take place, you will then look at this and say, how do we fix what we've got here? And that's what he taught me. So, and taught me to work hard. And trust me, we did. There was no monkey business. So, so anyways,
But you also have, I think, a gift too of teaching others.
yes, yeah. I've trained a lot of people.
Yeah.
When we, with new workmen coming on, work people, guys and gals, I would spend time with them, and I would always tell them, in fact, our CAD operators, even yet today, come from Spry, or from Schrader and from Thomas. And they, very gifted young people, and I've told them so many times, I will spend as much time as you keep listening and absorbing. And we've had one in particular stands out, and she was phenomenal. And I kept saying, I don't know how you know all this stuff. Well, there was a history in the family of remodeling, and she worked with her dad doing it.
Oh, interesting.
And then but she was sharp as a tack on a CAD program. And then she actually went into space planning for offices, houses, big houses and stuff like that. And in the end, she got 2 years free ride at Alfred Tech because of it. And she always said she couldn't thank us enough. And ironically, she had a house in Irondequoit, and she called us and she says, I'd like to talk to you about putting quartz stone countertops in the kitchen. So we actually went over and did that. So that was pretty neat to be able to work for us. The gal that was a student at one time. So, Mom and Dad, and there wasn't a ton of money growing up. Dad put a lot of it back in the business. He had a day crew and he had a night crew, and he worked with both of them. How the heck he did it?
What's a night crew?
They work nights.
Night crew.
Like all night?
Yeah, no, they'd work typically from 6 o'clock until 11.
Oh, wow.
And he'd be with both of them. I don't know how he did it, like I say, he was a hard worker. But one thing that they always made space for was vacations. Virginia Beach, Florida, just unique things. And that was one thing all of us kids at the time.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was. And Dad was just full of sayings, and one of his sayings that stuck with me was, you'll never appreciate your parents until you're a parent yourself. And it is so true. And so we find it today with us, and then now the grandkids that have kids, or our children that have kids, the grandkids, now they're starting to understand what this thing really means. We then came, when I was at age 10, Dad did not believe in ready mix. That was not good concrete. So at age 10, he had a gas run cement mixer, a little stupid thing. And I was the guy that mixed the concrete because those guys that he had working for him, they were gifted at anything. They poured floors, laid block, you name it, poured footings, of course. And I used to mix for them. And I had to keep hustling to keep that going. get it the right density and everything, or otherwise they're chewing at you. So there was basically so many of these things that you just started to accrue all of this knowledge, and then how much of it you use is flat amazing. And including math in school, even when I hear the grandkids would say, I'll never do this again, I don't need this, I go, you won't believe how much you will use that in your life, whatever you're going to do. And so that has helped immensely, and especially one thing we found out, and all of the kids, by the way, all kids and grandkids have all worked in the business. And Connor, the aerospace guy, he called one day, and it was because there was going to be 4 days off school because of snow. And so he says, is there work at KBE, Kitchen and Bath Expressions? And so Marlene says, there's always work for you. You could bring him in the office, put him on the computer, or you could put him on the job site with the guys, and they'd ask for him. And so, anyways, he came in, and I said, the next morning, I says, Connor, would you need cash? He goes, no, Bumpa. He goes, I couldn't see wasting my time in front of a TV or playing games for 4 days. And I thought maybe I could come in and help you. That's great. That night, his younger sister calls, and it's Tess, and our youngest granddaughter. And she comes in the next day, and she's all lolly-dolled up with makeup on and the whole deal, the scarf and everything. And I says, so Tess, I go, so did you decide that you didn't want to waste your time with that? She looks at me, she goes, oh no, Bumpa, I am here for the cash. And that's Tess. And anyone in the family that knows Tess understands that, but she's also a very hardworking girl, and she's now a hairstylist with her own customers and stuff, clients and stuff like that, her own website. So I think, you know, one of the things, and then at age 13, I actually ran the trim crew for all the crown molding, all the base trim in the house, and at 13 years old, and my dad or mom, if I was at school and I was gonna go there later on, she'd have to drive me to the job, obviously. So now Dad he develops a lot of back problems. He was at the chiropractor at least 2 to 3 times a week. And so one morning I come down, and on a Friday night he says to me, by the way, goes, in the morning, we'll go over prints for a new house we're framing on Holt Road. And I said, yeah, okay. I figure when we get to the job, I'm gonna look them over, we know what we gotta do. So comes Saturday morning, and I said to Mom, where's Dad? She goes, his back is killing him. I said, So there was gonna be a couple of guys I actually went to school with, they were farmers, the Magdy boys, but they were bulls, they were workers. And so finally Dad came out, and I said, how you doing? He goes, not good. He goes, you're gonna have to start framing this house alone today. So here I am with 2 farmers, a ranch house, and by the end of the day, so now I have a learner's permit, so I could drive the truck over. My sister had to ride in the truck with me, and then my mom came over and took her back. And it's now like 7:30 on a Saturday night, summertime, and Mom finally just says, we gotta go over and get him. And we were still going. By the time they came there, and this is a ranch house, we had all the sill liners down, we had all the plates, all the box sills, all the joist in place, including where the stairwell opening went in, because Dad says, make sure you get this in exactly where it has to be. And we were just getting ready to start putting the floor sheathing down, 3 guys. And Dad says, you did what? I go, yep. You learned to crown your joist and everything, and that was just because Dad did what he did for training, so, yeah. So anyways, Mom and Dad always raised us, all of us kids, to be respectful and helpful to others. And And I gotta say, they succeeded immensely well. And we handed that down to our kids, and then, thank God, it got handed down to our grandkids, which is probably the greatest benefit of everything. And I personally, and I'm gonna say I, and then I'm gonna qualify that immediately, I have been a member of the Webster Lions Club, and have been for over 51 years. And on the board of directors, I'm still on the board. I took a 3-year sabbatical in the middle, but 48 years on the board.
Oh, my goodness.
President 3 times. President of Camp Smile, not president of Camp Smile Incorporated, on that board, but for Camp Smile Foundation, president 3 times, 12 years doing that. And we still run, Marlene and I, and now I'm gonna qualify that all by saying I, and it really is we, because you can't do it without a great partner. So, anyways, we chair fundraisers. We just got done with our rose sale this past weekend, sold 240 dozen this year. And that was hard coming back because the pandemic, prior to pandemic, our best year was 456 dozen roses we sold. It's our major fundraiser. And
I don't know if you remember or not, but a few years back, I was invited to come on behalf of the museum to the Lions Club
Yep.
to speak.
Yep.
And what was the name of the restaurant up on O'Hare Boulevard you used to go to all the time, where the meetings were?
Waldron's?
No.
It's gone now.
No, well, we did go to Waldron's for a little while.
Yeah,
Whatever
it was after
Antonio's.
Waldron. Pardon?
Antonio's was one.
Antonio's. It was one of, anyway, I got there ready to speak, and I looked around the room and I said, I must be in the wrong place. And he says, why? I says, looks to me like I'm at a Lazzaro family reunion.
We do. I sponsored my brother, my nephew into the club, and actually, I believe, total over 15 members that I've sponsored in the club.
15?
15 new members, yeah. And we're membership chairs, so
I
now we're out
sponsored one.
scouting.
I remember.
We're out scouting all the time. And so, yeah, the club keeps saying to her, how come you don't become a member? And she goes, why would I pay dues to do what I'm doing now? So, anyways, so back when I was 18 and I was ready to, I wanted to buy a GTO. So I ordered a brand new 1966 GTO. And it, I bought it at Pitts Pontiac down the road, if you remember where Pitts was. And I paid for that car myself, $3,980. I ordered everything on it the way I wanted it, certain rear end gears, tranny, engine, 389 engine with 3 2-barrel carburetors on it, progressive linkage, and the thing was nasty when you got into it. And anyways, I'll never forget driving her home one night, and Clem rode on the bay, and I didn't pay attention that there happened to have been a cop nearby, and I took that car around sideways, and he pulled me over right in front of her parents' house on Pineview Drive, and I said to Marlene, I go, you might just walk into your parents, I says, because they're gonna wonder what's going on, and not only that, I think I gotta talk to this guy for a little bit. And so he says, you know what you did? You were reckless driving, and you got illegal exhaust. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, go ahead, step on that. So I stepped on it. Well, he didn't understand, you only drive on 2 barrels. You don't open the other 4 up unless you're serious and you're drag racing. And he's sitting there, do that again. I'm going, oh boy. So, so the word in school was, oh, his dad bought his car. That was from me working from age 7, even working for 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour, etc. I had that money in the bank. So basically, that's my story. You already know we were high school sweethearts. And so,
Are any of your kids gonna continue the business?
no.
No?
No, basically, good question. I wanted better for them.
Really? And you did so well.
It's because we put so much into it. And I encouraged, in fact, we went to some seminars and encouraged, and our oldest son, that's how he took the path of financial planning, which he's very successful today, but he has over 800 clients, and he has a team built. And,
But he worked for us, he did estimating, and then he worked in the field, so both boys have all that background too, if they wanna.
oh, they're excellent mechanics.
Yeah, they
Both of
can
them
do
can do
anything.
anything. And then I finally, once I knew Marty, the oldest, was going to be leaving, I went to the youngest one, Danny, and I said, he couldn't make up his mind. He had graduated St. John Fisher, 4 years, business and computers. And I said, what are you gonna do? He goes, oh, Dad, I guess I'll be in the business, because at that time, our daughter-in-law was in the business with us. And the one thing that we started to see was that we're a very fun family. We get into each other's stuff, and we just have a lot of fun. It's not a biggie for us to just go on a vacation together, et cetera, and have fun. And so, but I started to notice that the fun was starting to change dimension. And so finally, we talked about it, and I talked to the kids one night, and I said, we gotta have a family meeting. Oh, really? What are we gonna talk about? I go, we're gonna talk about what all of you are gonna do with the rest of your life. And so we did. And so I encouraged, Danny worked 3 days a week for us and 3 days for the Pittsburgh Credit Union. And after about 2.5 months, I saw the writing on the wall, and I said, I walked in his office one night, I said, what are you doing tonight? He said, I'm just hanging with the guys. I go, he said, what do you want to do, Dad? I go, I thought we'd have a conversation. Well, what do you want to talk about? I go, your future. I don't want to have that. I go, yeah. That's why
That's a
we're gonna.
future, you want to have the conversation.
That's why we're gonna. And I encouraged him that night to go. So,
He'd always been interested in electronics and anything that,
yep.
we moved one time and he disconnected all the TV, all the sound system from our house where we moved into. We couldn't use any of the stuff till he got back from Boy Scout camp and hook it back up again.
Well, and he was just a natural at it. He tears a computer down, puts it back together. It's nothing for him. And I'm going, do we need to label these parts? No, I know where they go. And that's why today he heads all IT for Pittsburgh Federal Credit Union. He has 12 people under him. They worship the ground he walks on, and now he's doing what he loves to do. So
Gary, what about some of your grandsons? Are they interested in?
no, again,
Yeah.
luckily we have, the 4 oldest are actually in jobs where they'll have nice retirements, they have good salaries, and the benefits. And I just knew that we're not gonna be able to move and progress with that, you know, which wasn't easy, because, you know, we needed good people and they were good, but, you know, we just knew when it was time to say time, so, yeah. So,
Our oldest
Anyway.
grandson is a full-time fighter in South Carolina. And the next one, he was in the Army, he's got a medical discharge. And his twin sister, she's a social worker. And one grandson works for the school bus garage.
he's a diesel engine mechanic,
Yeah. Another one works for the town highway department.
yep,
And who am I missing? We got Connor and Tess.
yep.
So that's
And
good.
the
So
oldest, I
awesome.
will say, never was interested in girls, and April 4th, we drove to Columbia, South Carolina, because he was married on April 6th. And very happy young man, and she is too. And I think, if I figure it all out, I think there was 24 Lazzaros at that wedding that came from Webster.
I'll give you this too. This was I forgot to show this one picture, Gary. And, when he was before battery operated. So
And on the
this is in the
backside,
back, you can see it.
Here's my dad on the backside.
And then
It
this
is
was our
unfortunate
wedding.
that so many young people aren't going into the trade.
Oh, I know it.
We just need.
I know,
I
that's what's
used to
happening.
do,
They just aren't there.
for the World of Work program, I would dedicate
Is that
one
done?
day and go to the schools and
And we're in the middle.
to talk to them, to explain to them about the trades. And the main questions came like, how much vacation time do I get? What's my
My
starting
mom
pay?
and dad and Gary's mom.
And I said, oh, we're going down the wrong road here.
Yeah.
So, and then, some of the wood shop equipment was sold at R.L. Thomas, and when I heard that, I happened to have been remodeling for Del Bouvard, superintendent of schools, and I said, how did that happen? And she says, it's not us, that's Albany tells us what to do. And I said, why don't we just tell Albany that we're not in agreement with that? She goes, because you wouldn't believe how much grant money will not come to Webster for the school system. So it was political.
It is,
It was political.
It's too
So-
bad.
yeah.
Did I miss it? Did you tell how you met each other?
We were, Jude, we went to school together at Thomas. And we were in the same math class, homeroom, something.
And you didn't know
Math
math?
Oh, gosh, no, I
Math
love it. Huh?
Math class.
Math class. You tell the story, it's your story, because I don't believe it.
Well, she was in the front row of it, the row we were sitting in, and there was and she liked to wear short skirts. And so,
I really was real shy, though.
so there was a fellow sitting behind me, and he goes, after about midway through the year, he goes, I bet I can get a date with her before you can. Going, huh. Well, next thing you know, I asked her to go to lunch with me in the cafeteria, and the rest was history.
It was our first date, lunching together.
And he never got that date. So, but I think, I want to say a thank you to everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think that all of you folks do a terrific job with the Webster Museum. And I think, I was talking to Susan this morning while I was working at her job, and she was, where? And so.
So here she is.
And so anyways, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And but it's something that hopefully will get out more and more as these things take place and
Yeah.
so on. So,
Hey, can I ask you a question, Gary? Sometimes people want to know who built their house. And I know A.N. Martin, built houses, and I know a couple of them. Do you guys have do you know, or do you have a list of the houses your family has built through the years?
yeah,
Here in
I
Webster?
have, I know the ones we've done personally, actually, yep.
Okay.
Sure.
That would be kind of neat to add to the
Right.
archives.
Yeah.
We're always trying to get as much history as we can
Sure,
about properties and houses. And it's hard to figure out the builders sometimes,
Yeah.
so.
yeah. Now, when it comes to additions, all I can tell you, we did hundreds and
Yeah.
Oh,
some-
yes.
some I
Now,
can
wait a
remember.
minute. Wait. You have to tell them about the one down on Lake Road. About the house that the floor in the kitchen was
Oh.
like this. I don't know who it is.
Yeah. It was it was Tom, whatever the last name was, and, oh my gosh, and his wife. And they were the first ones we were doing they were the first kitchen we sold when we opened our store up.
Oh, interesting.
And, McCune,
Oh,
Kay,
yeah.
Tom and Kay McCune. And that, we're going back a little bit, that's 1987 and 88. And
Yeah, but listen to the story.
so
You don't-
anyways, we realized this floor is out of level, and it seemed like there was some hollow. And I finally told Tom and Kay, I says, we should really open that up and investigate it before we start putting a kitchen on top of it. So we did start cutting the floor, and here is this huge encasement down under the floor. And it had to have been when they were moving slaves, because there was a tunnel.
Oh,
that
my
went-
goodness.
Yeah, and we uncovered it all. Needless to say, we built it much better.
Like
When
an
we were done.
underground
Yeah.
railroad kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Was it an old house?
Yeah, oh
Like
yeah,
old?
very old house,
Mm-mm.
yep.
Is it in Webster or the other, Ontario?
They're still just in Webster, I
I
believe,
think
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, across from Ontario on the lake.
Oh, yeah, okay.
West of that a little bit.
Mm.
They had the big tennis court there. When they were one of the
Oh,
few
yeah.
that had the big tennis courts.
Yeah, that's where Barry Swift used to live,
Yeah,
right?
Barry Swift ended up, they bought it from Barry Swift.
Oh, okay.
Exactly, yep, yep.
Do you have any history on that?
No, because I don't think, I'm not sure it's Webster.
Yeah, we're always interested in that,
That
trying
might
to
be Wayne
figure.
County.
I'm trying to think.
Is it east of County Line Road?
I'm trying to think of.
No.
I think it is.
Oh,
See, I think it's Ontario.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, county line is our.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
Oh, thank you again.
yeah,
Thank you.
here you go. I got thank you little thingies for you.
Oh.
Oh, Marlene, I gave you a cup.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, how nice. Thank
Yeah.
you very much to everybody.
And when you retire, you can have your morning tea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then you get a hat.
Thank you.
And a thank you note.
Thank you much.
Well, thank you both very much. It was fun.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
A
Fun having
service
you
to the
too. Thank you.
community.
Good.
All right.